Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. So today I'll be showing us how to sew and the off-shoulder princess that bustier we drafted. It's on the channel, and I'm going to leave the link on how we drafted this pattern on the channel. So today's video will be showing us how to sew this pattern. Okay, so I have all of my pieces ready. I have my double flare, which I'm going to be attaching to the waist of this pattern, and I have all of my pattern pieces ready. And what I've done here is I have cut my pattern piece on the main fabric and the lining. So all of my pieces has a main fabric and also have a lining. So after cutting the pattern on my fabric, we also be attaching fusible interfacing on all of my patterns, the front, the back, and the double flare that will be attaching to this bodice. Okay, so what I'll do now is to go ahead to take off my pattern so that we can iron out the interfacing on all of the fabric. And also do not forget to place your notches at the underbust line, at the bust line, and also at the waistline. Okay, these notches would help you to be able to know where to match when you are about to sew. So placing your notches at the right places is important because you're going to be sewing on a curved edge, and sewing on a curved edge is not that easy if you are a beginner. So I would advise that you place notches on all the various parts that are important so that when you come to stitch, you would find it easy to place each other at the appropriate sites. So okay, so now after placing my notches where my notches are supposed to be placed, I placed it on the bust and also at the bust line. Now we'll move on to ironing our interfacing on all of our fabric. So I've ironed my interfacing on the double step peplum, that is double step flare that I cut out previously. I had done a video on that. I'll be leaving the link in the description box so that you can watch how to cut a 360 degrees circle. That's a full circle. I ironed an interfacing, that's the fusible interfacing, the one we call ST, on the main fabric and also on the lining. Right, so that's what I've done here. I did that for the first step and also for the second step. All right, and then for the main fabric as well, that's for the bodies of the off shoulder, I also ironed my fusible interfacing on it. I ironed it on the main fabric and also on the lining. So all of my pieces has been ironed. Now the reason why I used a fusible interfacing to iron all of this is so that it will give the garment some sort of weight, and also it will also give it structure, just to add a little bit of weight to it. So that is why I ironed interfacing on it, but you can still do this without ironing and interfacing on it. All right, but I like to use an interfacing whenever I'm making an African print fabric, depending on the style. So now we've gotten all of our pieces ready. The next thing to do is to go ahead and assemble this pattern, and then we can start joining. Now the first part we'll be assembling will be the front panel. Okay, I'll be placing the front panel side by side, the center front and the side front side by side, and we are going to be stitching the both sides. So for you to do this, you need to place them center front and center front and side front, right sides facing each other, and we are going to be pinning them down. So when you pin down, ensure that you match the notches that we already placed on our fabric. Remember that we placed a notch on each of our pattern. Okay, so what I'll be doing now is to match all of the notches that I have placed on the center front and on the side front. So I'll place them on each other, right sides facing each other, and then I will match the underbust notch and also the bust line notch as well. I'll do that for the other side. I'll use my pins to secure all the points that I've just matched together. So after securing it with my pins, I will just take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to run a stitch from the bottom to the top. Now when you are sewing your princess seam, okay, a bustier princess seam, please note that you be taking your sewing from the bottom, not from the top, okay? And if you do this wrongly, if you sew from the top, your seams might not align, and then after sewing it might not come out nice. It might not come out the way it should come out. So after stitching, this is what my princess seam looks like. You can see how the bust area is very prominent even without ironing it yet, and also padding it. You can see how nice the front is looking like. Okay, you can see the inside. I haven't padded it yet, and I have not even ironed it. So if you cut correctly and you stitch it right, this is how it should come out. So the next thing I will do is to take this to my iron, and I'm going to iron it out. Please note that when ironing it, ensure that you also iron the inside, that you also iron the seam opening at the inside, okay, so that your seam will relax nicely. So I've ironed my pattern right now. I've ironed the fabric, and this is it. This is the inside. I've ironed the seam inside open as well. So now after this, we are going to also move on to the back. Now to join the back, we are going to place it right sides facing each other, and I'll also pin it as well. I've taken the liberty to mark out my 1/2 inch. If you can do that, if to be easier for you. And I've also sewn it also and ironed it inside out. I also ironed the seam inside open, okay? It's important so that your seam will relax nicely and also it will remain flat. Now we are done with the back and the front. Moving on, we are going to be working on the lining. Now whatever you did for the main fabric, it's the same thing you do for the lining. I've sewn the back. I've also ironed it out as well. I did the same thing for the front, okay? I also joined the front and I ironed it out as well. Now I'm going to be joining the back and the front main bodies together. I used 1 inch for the side seam, so I'm going to be joining the back and the front together to join the two pieces together, and I'm going to be stitching it on a 1 inch sewing allowance. So ensure that whatever seam allowance you took on your pattern is exactly what you're going to be taking on your fabric when you are stitching. So here I will just use my pins now to secure the two edges, that's the side, and then after securing the two sides, we are going to go ahead and stitch it up by 1 inch on the sides. Now I've stitched the sides, and here we go. This is what the sides look like, the front and the back. I've joined the two pieces together. Now we're going to do the same thing for the lining. So for the lining, what I'll do is to be attaching an already made breast cup to it. So I'm going to be attaching it on the lining before joining the front and the back. So what you need to do is to take your breast cup and then place it at the underbust, okay, where you have your underbust, and ensure that the part where the cup is curved inside, has the deepness inside, is facing the wrong side of your lining, okay? So using an already made breast cup, I'll just place it at the underbust on the lining. So you're placing this on the wrong side of your lining, and then make sure that the curved part, that is the inside where the cup is facing the wrong side of the fabric, okay? Now I'll do the same for the other side as well. All right, and after holding them down with my needle, I'm going to use my needle now, and we're going to use a needle and thread to tack the breast cup to the lining. So all you need to do is to get a matching thread. You can use whatever color of fabric you are working with, either one. So you roll out your thread and then you put it inside your needle, and then you go ahead to tack the breast part to the lining. So it's as simple as that. You just put your thread inside your needle. You know the way you sew with your hand needle, right? So you do that, and then you tack each of the breast part, each of the sides. You can do 2 or 3 tacks depending on how you want it, and how depending on how you want it exactly. So but for this video, I'm just going to tack the underbust and also the upper chest line of this bust part. So that's what I'll do here, and after tacking it, this is what we have. The breast part is sitting on the lining. That's the wrong side of the lining. Now after we've gotten this breast part, we're going to now go ahead and join the front and the back together. So you place them right sides facing each other, and you're going to be stitching it by 1 inch on both sides to join the front and the back. And also for the lower part, that's for the flare at the waistline, we are also going to be joining that as well. So after stitching the sides of the lining, we are going to be joining our circle flare at the waist part. So after joining, this is what we have. I've joined the main bodice and the flare, that's the circle, and this is what it is. So I joined lining to lining. After this is the inside of my lining. This is what it looks like, looking clean and beautiful. So moving on to the main fabric now, I'm going to take one step, that's the shorter step of the circle, and I'm going to be joining the main fabric and the lining together. So for the short, because this style has 2 double peplum, one is short and the other one is long. So for the shorter one, I'm going to be joining the main fabric and the lining together. I'm going to stitch them by 1/2 inch all around. Okay, I'm only going to be stitching the bottom parts. All right, so after stitching the bottom part, I will be opening it up, and I'm going to be doing a top stitch. All right, so the essence of doing a top stitch is so that the lining doesn't fold over to the main fabric. So this is what it looks like after stitching and also doing a top stitch. Okay, now when you are doing a top stitch, you're going to be shifting all of your seam allowance towards the lining. Okay, that is what you need to do. You shift your seam allowances towards the lining, and you're going to be running a stitch from one end to the other. Now we're done with that. I will take this to my iron, and I'm going to give it a good press. So this is what it looks like. I've ironed it. This is the inside, and also the main fabric is also looking beautiful. So for the longer step of our double circle, I will just take the shorter one that I have just attached the lining on. I'm going to take that and I'll place it on the longer step of the peplon, and then I'm going to be stitching it together. So I'm going to be joining the short and the long double peplon together. Now the 2 pieces have been joined together. Please note that the longer circle doesn't have a lining attached to it. So now we're going to take that piece now, and we're going to be attaching it to the upper bodice. And to do this, I'm going to place it right sides facing each other. So I'm going to grab my upper bodice, place it on the lower, that is the double peplon, okay, the double circle we have, and we're going to be attaching the 2 of them together. First, I'm going to use my pins to hold them both down together and ensure that they all meet up zipper to zipper. So after attaching them both together with my pins, I will take it to the machine, and I'm going to be running a stitch on it. I'm going to be running a 1/2 inch stitch on it to join the 2 pieces together. So now the two piece has been joined. You can see how beautiful and lovely it is looking. This is what the inside is looking like. Okay, very clean and nice. So here we have it. The upper bodice and the lower part has been attached. Now after this part, we are going to be working on the lining. Now we're going to be joining the lining to the main fabric. Now to join the lining to the main fabric, what I will do is to take the lining. Remember that we have already joined the lower part and the upper part of the lining separately. So what I'll do now is to join the lower part of this lining to the lower parts of the main top. Okay, so we're going to be joining it only at the lower parts. You can decide to do it a different way. You can join the neckline first depending on how you want to, but I've decided to join the lower parts of the main fabric and the lining together, and after that I also did a top stitch as well. So now this is what we have after joining the lower parts together. The lining and the main fabric has been joined. Now I'm going to be attaching my zipper on it. So now I have the zipper in the length of 18 inches. So what I will do is to open up the lining, the part where we have that line where the main fabric and the lining stop. That is where I'm going to be attaching the bottom of the zipper. I'm going to be placing the zipper the bottom of the zipper right there at that line, and we're going to be stitching at the zipper allowance that we left on our fabric. So you're not stitching it directly on your lining, you're only stitching the zipper on the main fabric. Okay, so now you can see the line I have that is joining, that join I have between the main fabric and the zipper. Okay, that is where I fixed the bottom of the zipper from that point upward. Now after that, we do this for the first side and also the second side of the zipper. Now for us to be able to close the zipper, now we are going to now fold over our lining so that we can conceal the zip. Now this method you will not even see any stitches. Okay, this method you won't see any stitches, especially when you're using an open teeth zipper. So now I folded my lining over to touch my zipper. I'll do this for each side of the zipper, and then I'm going to just take it to the machine and I'm going to run a stitch from top to bottom. Okay, so now after running a stitch from top to bottom, this is what the inside of my fabric looks like. This is what the inside of my garment looks like. I'm going to be showing you what the zipper area looks like. You can see the zipper is nicely concealed inside and tucked inside the fabric. You won't see any stitches outside. So this is the advantage of working with this method. So the zipper is inside and it's looking beautiful. All I need to do is to just take this to my ironing board and give it a good press so that it relaxes nicely. So here we have it, guys. The zipper has been installed. The lining has been used to conceal the zipper. Okay, so now I'm just going to zip that up so that you see what we have at the outside. So this is what the outside of my garment looks like, beautiful and clean. And also I'm going to show you what the back looks like. Now it's important that when you join in your zip, you ensure that all the parts align properly, the waistline aligns properly, and where you have your short peplum, it also aligns properly. Where you have your shoulder flare on your fabric, it also aligns properly. So this is what the back of my garment looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the neckline of this garment. I'm going to be stitching the neckline, that's the front and the back, and I'm going to be turning this inside out for us to be able to do that. Alright, so I'm just going to turn the main fabric and the lining to face each other. Okay, you can see the way I'm doing it in the video. So I'll just go ahead and push all of my circles, my flare inward, and then ensure that the lining and the main fabric touches each other right sides together. Okay, so this is how we are going to be attaching the neckline of the front and the back. So when we do this, we are going to use our pins to secure all the edges. So when we take it to the sewing machine, we are going to be running a stitch on the front neckline and also at the back neckline. So now we've stitched up the neckline of the front and the back. So what we'll do next is to go ahead and cut the remaining zip that we don't need. And also it's important to notch all of your curve. Okay, seeing that this is a neckline, it's important that it stays nice and flat on the chest. So I'm going to notch all of the curves that I have on my neckline for the front and for the back. And okay, so do this so that when you turn it the right side, when you turn it to the right side, it relaxes nicely, and when you also iron it, it relaxes nicely. And then the excess zipper that we have outside, we are going to also trim that off. Now I'm going to turn my fabric inside out to reveal the right side of this fabric, to reveal the right side of my garment, and also to show us what the neckline looks like after we've joined the main fabric and the lining. So now after I've joined, this is what it looks like. The neckline has been joined, the front and the back has been joined. So the only part where we still have an opening is the armhole. Okay, so that is the only part that is still having an opening, but the neckline of the front and the back has already been joined. And I'm going to just give it a quick press. I used my gum stay. I used my hemming gum to iron the neckline so that it stays flat. You can put your hemming gun underneath your fabric, so when you are ironing, so I'll use my hemming gum to iron the neckline of the front and the back. And then after that, this is what it looks like. So now we're going to be attaching the sleeve. For the sleeve, I already did a sleeve pattern also in my video. So in the pattern drafting video, I also showed you how to draft this sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'll just take my pattern, I'll place it on my fabric, and I'll just go ahead and cut out. And then this is what the sleeve looks like. I'll also use this template to cut out the second part of the sleeve. So now after cutting out the sleeve, we go ahead and join it to the main fabric. And after I've joined it, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. So here guys, the sleeve has been attached and this is what it looks like. And also for the wrist, I used some piece of fabric of the main fabric to finish off the wrist of the sleeve. And also at the cap, at the sleeve head, I also used a piece of the main fabric for that part as well. Alright guys, this is what our off-shoulder princess dart bust here looks like. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next one. Remain positive wherever you are and stay blessed. Bye.